Today we're going to begin our painting of Georgia O'Keeffe's Pedernal Mountain. So I'm going to begin by drawing the horizon line, and of course the horizon line is going to be the mountain. So I'm going to begin by starting sort of at the middle of my paper, but then going up just a tiny bit, because I do want to make sure that I save room for the sky. So I'm going to draw just a slightly bumpy line, but then of course for the mountain I'm going to come up and go over a little bit, and then come back down. And I just looked at Georgia O'Keeffe's paintings of the Pedernal in order to know how to draw that shape and just sort of try to get it close. It doesn't have to be perfect. Next, I'm going to go down to the bottom of my paper and I'm going to draw some more layers of little desert hills. Now, these are going to be mostly sort of straight, but also just slightly wavy. It's kind of like a very organic type of line. Organic means found in nature. And your lines don't have to go all the way across. If you want some to kind of bump down in the middle, I think that gives your layout of your artwork a little bit more interest. And I'm just going to keep on going until I'm happy with the layout of my picture. Let's see, I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines, and I think that looks like a pretty good design for my picture. Now the next step is I'm going to start painting at the top of my picture and then work my way down. So I'm going to start with the sky color, and my mountains can be any colors I want. I don't really have to make them realistic desert colors. We can be a little bit abstract with our colors. So when I paint, I'm going to choose a nice big brush to start, and in my sky I'm going to begin by painting some white paint onto my paper. I'm gonna do like a blue sky for mine, but if you wanna do a different color, of course that's totally okay. You could make it more of a sunset sky, or really any color sky that you want. Once again, we said that the colors could be a little bit abstract. Now I'm gonna take my brush and clean it off just a little bit and dry it before I get my next color. And then I can just dot that color around a little bit and start blending them together. Now, if your paint doesn't blend very well, you might need to get just a little dip of water to sort of help the colors mix. Because tempera paint does dry pretty fast, and dried out paint is not going to blend. So if you're having trouble getting your paint to blend, just try adding that little bit of water. Or if your brush is making a lot of scratchy sounds, that's another signal that it's dried out. Or it just might mean that you need a little more paint too. You want to use a lot of thick paint to get those really beautiful bright colors that Georgia O'Keeffe used. Now when I'm getting down close to my horizon line here, I'm really sort of going slow so that I don't get a whole bunch of my sky color mixed into my mountain color. And this is looking pretty good so far. I'm just sort of making artistic choices as I go about how I want my colors to look. Like I think I want my sky to be a little lighter at the bottom. So I'm gonna try mixing in some more white down here. And then I want it to be a little bit darker blue as it goes up. So that means maybe I'll get some of this darker blue color and blend that in. Now, if your brush strokes don't blend perfectly, that's okay. That's another thing where it's sort of your preference. Some people like their brush strokes to show a little bit like this, or some people like to take the time to smooth them out. Georgia O'Keeffe really liked to have her paintings a little more on the smooth side, so I'm going to try that out just to kind of get a little more inspiration from her. There we go. And I'm just going to keep on working with my colors until I'm happy with my sky. Now that my sky is done, I'm going to move on to the Pedernal Mountain. Now, usually in Georgia O'Keeffe's paintings, the Pedernal was kind of a violet-y blue color, so I'm going to once again get inspiration from her and mix together a little bit of magenta and turquoise. But if you want to make your mountain a different color, that of course is fine. So I'm just going to do the same thing, starting with a little bit of my lighter color first, which is my magenta. And And then I can go and add in some of the darker color. So I'm gonna clean my brush, dry it off really well. I'm gonna add in a little bit of this darker blue. Now when I get close to the sky, I'm really gonna make sure that I'm going slow so that I don't get mountain color in my sky. I also need to make sure that my brush has a lot of paint on it so that it doesn't get a scratchy look. It has a nice clean, crisp edge. Because if your brush gets dried out, it starts to have a feathered look to it. And that can be cool sometimes, but not when we're outlining shapes. So I'm gonna get just a little more creamy blue paint and maybe even a little water to really make it nice and smooth, and then get those edges. And I'm just gonna keep on going with my color blending until I am happy with the color of my mountain. Now I'm not gonna go too crazy with my blending on this mountain because I actually like how some places on it are a little more pink and some are a little more blue, and then some are a little bit more violet where I blended them together. So you do not have to make each hill one solid color. It really probably looks better when you have a little bit of variation because that makes it look more realistic, like a real landscape would look. Now I'm just gonna move on now to my next hill. And I'm gonna choose a new color to paint this hill. I think I'm gonna go for like a sort of a mint green color. So I know that I'm gonna need white, yellow, and blue. So I'm gonna start with my lightest color first. Clean my brush and add my second color. Try to get a cleaner area of that yellow there. And then just a little teeny tiny bit of the dark blue. And then I'm gonna start blending them together. So one more thing that I noticed about Georgia's Pedernal landscapes was that she really liked to use a lot of tints in her paintings. And you guys might remember that a tint is when you add white to a color to make it lighter. So I'm gonna use a little bit of extra white, and I'm gonna blend it into, I usually like to do the tops of my hills. Because when you put it on the top, it makes it look like the sunlight is shining down on it. And then I sort of blend it out as I get to the bottom. So a little more white on the top, and then blend it out towards the bottom. So if you like the way this looks, it kind of gives it a little bit of a 3D quality as well. You can use a lot of white on the tops, or just a little, or if you want the colors to be a little darker, you can just use your darker colors as well. I'm just gonna keep on going, making each hill a different color until I get all the way to the bottom of my paper. Once you have all of your big shapes painted in, we're gonna leave our paintings to dry. I'm choosing not to add any clouds or bushes or small details yet because I'm gonna do those later on when my paint is dry with oil pastel.